Welcome to the CrossFit Alioth Unleashed podcast, where we discuss health and fitness, mindset and business with your host, Coach Lloyd. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Alioth Unleashed, where we post updates and teasers on our upcoming guests and podcasts. Hey, here he is. Come on, Mike. I've been waiting for you. Here he is. Take a seat, mate. I've got some practical snacks for you. I know you love to snack on some practical. Feel free to grab one, mate. You can grab a snack. I've already eaten mine. Make sure those headphones are working. Representing Alioth and Alioth Dark Horse today.
That's it, yeah.
Branding.
Oh, that's clear. What we got?
Oh, you tell us, what have we got?
This one looks got a lot of this protein ball.
Yeah, have one of those, mate. You need your energy for this podcast that we're going to
All the talking.
record right now. So welcome for those that are watching and listening. Episode 10 of the Alioth Unleashed podcast. And today I do indeed have Mr. Mike Bourne sat down with me. He's been wanting to come on my podcast for ages. He loves a good chat.
Desperate. Thanks for having me.
Just bring that mic a little closer. Perfect. So, for those that don't know, tell people what you do, who you are, where do you come from, all that jazz.
Mike Bourne from Birmingham, England.
Birmingham.
Yeah, Birmingham. Second city. And I'm a swim coach, PT, coach, fitness enthusiast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fitness enthusiast. So, you are originally the Alioth swim coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it first came about.
That's it.
How did that come about, you working for Alioth and becoming this swim coach that you are known for now?
So, sorry, let's finish this protein ball. Practical. Thanks.
Give them some feedback.
Yeah. That's good. So originally, I started training at Alioth in 2017, like end of 2017, start of 2018.
Yeah.
And that's when I did my first open. I'd never been into CrossFit before, done a few classes here and there and tried a few workouts and that, but I've not actually ever done the open before. And at the time, a few of the coaches that were there, got Phil Hesketh, Amir Hesketh, and then Street Horner came over. And it was sort of, I think I probably sort of made myself known as a swim coach through those guys. As everyone knew that I was involved in swimming, everyone knew I was involved in water polo. And they sort of wanted me to go through some, obviously, tips and tricks and technique and basically working on their efficiency.
So it started off with you coaching some well-known CrossFit athletes how to swim properly, or give them some...
Yeah, pretty much that's it. And then sort of... obviously built myself off that, was lucky to sort of work with other athletes as well that came over for like the Dubai Fitness Champs.
I mean, that's good exposure for you, right?
Yeah, massive. And obviously I think that's through Alioth as the platform of, being that gym that when the athletes do come over, they want to come and train at Alioth. So that was very lucky for me in that sense, that I was just there, that I was the only swim coach available, and I got to work with them. And I then obviously started having discussions with James, and then Hess was asking about it too, and we looked at starting the swim club. I think it was actually before COVID. Then COVID hit, so then it sort of got prolonged and pushed back, and then it was October 2020 that we first did the first session and set it up, and it's gone from 1 session a week to 2 sessions a week to 3 sessions a week, which is great, and we're sort of 2.5 years in now. Mm-hmm. So nearly, it'll be obviously 3 years in.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that do like swim club. Obviously, something that we offer that quite a lot of gyms don't, which is great for CrossFit Alioth. So let's take it right back before you coming to Dubai. Was swimming always your first sport? What other sports did you play when you were growing up? Like, what was going on with the younger Mike, sport-wise?
I just loved sport. I loved, playing whatever I could. Just loved competing, very competitive, still very competitive, to be honest.
Who do you get that from then?
I'd have to say my dad more so, because he's probably the more competitive one out of my parents. He used to play football a lot, and obviously then I would always be competing with him when I'm playing football in the back garden or something with him and stuff. So I'd say it's definitely my dad. But obviously both parents have been massively supportive through my whole sporting career going through. But they obviously pushed me into swimming when I was younger, not necessarily to be a swimmer, just to learn to swim. And I was probably swimming when I was 3, going to like lessons. And then I think I was probably about 5 or 6 years old that the woman that was coaching me at the leisure centre that we were doing our swim classes at sort of approached my mum and dad and were like, look, I know a swim coach that's part of a swim club. I think you should take Mike down for a trial and see if he likes it, and then go from there. And that's basically where my swimming, I won't say swimming career, but that's where my swimming really started. I then went to a swim club. I was training it like probably 5 times a week.
How important do you think swimming is for these younger people to do when they're at such a young age? Because I know even like in Dubai right now, there's generally a lot of local people that don't have any swimming lessons growing up. They get to an age where they think, right, I actually can't swim. I see it in a lot of local events and stuff where they don't have that, that childhood of, even if it's at school doing once a week, they don't have this. So how important is growing up swimming?
So personally myself, I think swimming is a life skill. I think everyone should learn how to swim. Not to be competitive, but everyone should learn how to swim just to, save your life if necessary. You never know where something's going to happen. You go to the beach and you get caught in a tide or a rip curl. You never know, places like the UK, you could slip and fall into a canal. There's obviously, you just never know when something's going to happen. Slip into the side of a river. And I just think it's just a great skill to have, just to learn, to survive if ever needed. It's a great skill to have to work on your fitness. It's low impact, it's full body, and also as well, it can be very relaxing if you get good at it and you learn to do it properly. But that's obviously for me, like growing up, that's where I went from. I went into that competitive stage, so I was just learning to swim, and then I was obviously offered the opportunity to go to a club, and then by the sort of end of 6 turning 7, that's when I started doing more competitive galas and open meets and stuff. And obviously then went through my years playing. I was basically swimming and football were my 2 sports growing up. And I used to juggle them quite well, where I'd do open meets that I could do on the Saturdays and Sundays when I didn't have games and stuff, because we'd always play like Sunday league on the football. And I then got approached by a scout to then go to Birmingham City Football Club when I was younger, and I was there for I can't remember how long I was there for, but I was there till I was about 12, and then I got let go. And obviously as a young kid, growing up, I don't think I always thought I'm going to be a swimmer. Obviously as a young kid I was like, I'm going to be a footballer. And then you get let go from your boyhood club, as it were, and I just missed, I was gutted, but I missed the team element. And I carried on swimming because it was a great little family club that I used to swim at. And then that's when I then saw the opportunity to play water polo.
So taking this leap from you just swimming, enjoying it, and taking the leap to doing something professionally, which is obviously water polo, which is what you did very professionally, and we're going to go more into that. Was there somebody who sort of pushed you into that direction or inspired you to be like this good water polo player? I'll
always give credit to my old swim coach, because for me, I would never be the water polo player I was if it wasn't for him teaching me how to swim and basically making me the swimmer that I was. And that was always a strong asset of my water polo game, was my speed and being able to swim fast and sort of being agile in the water. In terms of actual water polo itself, there was a couple of people in the swim club that I sort of looked up to as a swimmer, and they also played water polo. So it was probably that I looked at them and thought, oh, they swim, they're good swimmers. They play water polo as well. I want to give that a go. And then it was more so like just speaking to my dad, and my dad being like, well, if you want to give it a go, give it a go. And then the water polo team always trained on a Monday night, and I stayed behind after one swim class, 1 week to try it out, and yeah, it was absolutely terrible. It was terrible to start off with.
So you transitioned over to water polo at 13 years old.
Yeah.
How was it transitioning from just being a good swimmer to then learning water polo? Like, what did you find hard? What did you find easy?
So I think the main thing is I had I'd say I had good hand-eye coordination anyway, and just good overall coordination with most sports that I played. I'm very much the person that if I can watch something or watch how someone does something, that I can try and mimic it just by watching. I'm a very visual learner, and that's what I tried to do with water polo. And the hardest thing with water polo was learning to tread water at the same time as catching and being able to pass and being able to shoot. So it was more so just that body awareness of being able to stay afloat, but then also catch the ball. And like in water polo, you can only use one hand. You can't use two hands to catch. Only the goalkeeper can use two. Yeah. So you can only ever use one hand.
I mean, if you use two, then you're not going to be able to tread water, right?
Well, no, but
it's going to be harder to tread.
It is hard. It's hard. You can, but it's very hard. But also, like it's against the rule. So if you use two hands, it's a foul. And it's the other team's ball. So, and that was it. It was more so learning to be in the right position and the body awareness, and just that's the skill of just being comfortable passing and catching, shooting, catching, and. Like I say, to start with, I was awful. It was really hard for me to catch the ball, and it was just all of a sudden over one summer, everything just clicked, and it was like, oh, I can play. I can, I've got no trouble now. Something did just click, and I just all of a sudden had the confidence just to go forward and try new skills, try different shots, and obviously that just comes through the more and more that you practice and the more and more you train. But it definitely something just clicked over one summer, and it felt good.
Nice. For those that don't know, and I don't know much about water polo, can you just quickly explain how water polo works? Like, I don't have a clue how it works.
So the best way I can explain it to someone that doesn't have a clue is imagine the sport of handball, but in water. Okay. And if you don't know the sport of handball, imagine football in water, but you use your hand and not your foot, because you've got two goals. It's the same sort of it's a 30-meter pitch, and two goals either end, team either end. And
the goals are a lot smaller. The goals are, I think they're about 90 centimeters high and like 3 meters wide. I think is the specifics. I think, or something like that. Yeah. I can't remember off the top of my head. And yeah, so obviously because you can't touch the floor, you're having to tread water. So the goals can't be too high, otherwise you'll never get to the top corners to save it if you're a goalkeeper. And so basically two teams, and it's defend and attack. You have a 30-second shot clock, very similar to like a basketball. You can only have the possession for 30 seconds, and you've basically got to move the ball from one end of the pool to the other. Play it around in your set attacks and obviously what your set defence is against whatever attack you've got coming at you, and just basically try and score more goals than the other team. How many players, if you will, on a team?
13 players with 7 players in the water. So you'll have a goalkeeper and six outfield. And
is it usually 2 halves of like a football game?
Four quarters.
So quarters, yeah.
So the quarters are 8 minutes. 8 minutes long, but it's a stopping clock. So every time the ref blows his whistle, the clock stops. So a game can last an hour.
Is it a high-scoring game, like a bit like basketball, or?
Very dependent on the teams that you play. Okay. So if you play...
Is it 1 point per goal? Or?
Yeah, 1 point per goal. If you play a fast team, like a really fast-paced, counter-attacking team, you can have a high-scoring game. You could have scores, mid-teens to 20. You could have a heavy team that you play that have got big... heavy centre forwards, and that they slow the game down. Then you could have a game that's ends up being 9-7 or 5-4. But it all depends on how the other team plays and whether you get a chance to play the way that you want to play, or you get drawn into their tactics, as it were.
So you've just transitioned from swimming over to water polo. You're now giving this a go. You've just learned, and everything's clicked. How did your professional career come about in water polo? How did it start?
So. From playing in the junior league in the Midlands, I then got noticed by a water polo club called Solihull, and I went to play there. And while this was all transitioning on, I then got to go to like the Midland district, like training camps, and they put them on weekly at some points. And I ended up getting picked to play in the home nations. I can't remember the exact age I was. It was probably like 14, 15, probably 15. And it was home nations, so England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and that was my first ever like
professional gig.
Not professional, because obviously I was young. We weren't getting paid or anything. Okay. But it was the first time I'd sort of represented my country in that respect. And yeah, we ended up winning that. And just from there, then I would then go and play for Solihull in the National League, because the team that I played for in the Midland League, they didn't have a national. They didn't play in the National League. So I then had to obviously progress to a different team to play in the broader scheme of things with the national team, national league. Played with Solihull for a few years, and then was approached by a coach called Jim Caulfield from Grantham, who ran a water polo academy at a college in Grantham, and he was like, "Look, I think that Mike could be, a good fit for the academy. He'd get to train 2-3 times a day. He'd still do his academic work." So from finishing secondary school, I was still 16 years old, and I moved away to college in Grantham, which is about 20 minutes outside of Nottingham, roughly. So basically the East Midlands. So I was living away from home from 16, and I was there for 3 years, training 2-3 times a day.
So it was like a water polo college. Is that right?
It was a normal college, but they had a football academy, they had a squash academy, they had a table tennis academy, and they had a water polo academy.
Okay.
So some real random sports.
So you was training a lot water polo, getting your college work done at the same time.
Yeah.
Win-win.
And basically gaining some independence of living away from home.
Yeah.
So that was another big step for me. And while I was there in Grantham, I was continuing to get picked for like the Great Britain junior team, and we'd go to the Junior European Championships. And then I remember it vividly. I was, as a typical college student would be, I was sleeping in the morning after I think it was on one of the weekends, so we didn't have training. So any chance I got as a teenager, I was asleep probably until midday. And I remember waking up to my phone ringing. I was like, "Who's this ringing me?" And anyway, it was the national team coach. It was the Great Britain coach at the time, and he's like, "Look, we've got a tournament coming up in Egypt, and it's for the men's team, and I just want to know if you'd be able to get time off college, and would you be interested in, playing for the Great Britain men's team?" And I was on the phone. I'm half asleep, and I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely."
So how old was you here now?
I was 18.
18, and then getting called up to the men's Great Britain team.
18.
Was it just you in that college that got called up, or there's some other people as well?
It was me originally.
Yeah.
And then there was another lad that I trained with, and I think it was probably about a week later he got called up as well. And then like we would always train together, obviously at college, and he was from down south near just outside of London, and yeah, we got our first call up together. Went to Egypt, and then I think my first cap was against. I'm pretty sure this is quite ironic. It was against Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
That was my obviously quite close to home, as I call it now, where we are now. And then played a few teams over there. I think South Africa were there, and a couple others. But like I say, it's a long time ago now, nearing up to 18 years.
When you're 18 years old and you're getting called up to a national men's team, like, could be pretty daunting. Like, I know a lot of people that, footballers back in the day that had trained with football teams could have made it because they had so much good ability, but they found other things, whether it was alcohol, whether it was hanging out with their friends too much, whether it was like the mind going somewhere else and not focusing so much on the career, because, we all make sort of these life choices when we're growing up, being 18 and so on. So how did you manage to stay like focused and motivated in and around this international circuit, but yet having college on the other shoulder going, you know, I could do this, I could do that. Like, how did you stay motivated to keep on the right path?
So I think I had my rebel year when I was much younger. And when I say my rebel year, I went to a terrible secondary school, like literally one of the worst schools you could have possibly...
In Birmingham?
Yeah, one of the worst schools you could have gone to. I think out of 81 schools in Birmingham, I think at the time it was ranked like 80th. It was awful. I didn't want to go there. Parents didn't want to send me there, but I didn't get into any of the schools I wanted to because I was out of the catchment area. So I had friends that lived further away from the schools that I wanted, but they got in because they already had a brother that was there. So I ended up going to this awful school, and I think I was in year 9, so I was probably about 14 at the time, 13, 14, and that's when I sort of really, I didn't go off the rails, but I started not wanting to do sport as much. I was trying to hang around with my friends and hang on street corners and, you know, this and this, and I then because I then started getting called up to like the junior team, I then started seeing, I'm representing my country here, and I basically, you know, I got drawn out of that back into the sports side of thing, and I think that's because that happened to me early on. I wasn't bothered about going out and getting drunk every weekend. Now, don't get me wrong, I was in college. I was going to go out and have. I worked in a bar, you know, for 2 of the years that I worked in. That I was at college, so I was around alcohol a lot, but I wanted to be the best. I'm not saying I was the best, but I wanted to be as good as I could be, and I knew that if I just went out and got drunk every weekend, that I wasn't going to perform, I wasn't going to sleep, I wasn't going to recover. And this is back then, you know. Now there's so much more stuff that you can utilise to recover, and we used a lot of it back then, but looking back, if I could do the stuff that I do now and do it back then, I think I would have been an even better player than I ended up being. But just me, I was competitive, I wanted to win, and I was just willing to put in the hours and put the training in and just try and, you know, perfect my craft, as it were.
I guess the ultimate goal as well, being in and around that circuit, is to represent your country,
That's
right?
it.
And how cool is that going to be, you know?
Well, that's honestly, still to this day, it still is one of the greatest feelings that I've ever had.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get onto that eventually. So you're in and around that circuit, getting called up to the men's team, Great Britain team. What went on from there? Like, how did it end, if you will? Like, what happened?
So how did I retire? Or what?
Well, so you're at the you're in and around that team now in college. You just got that phone call from the Great Britain head coach. What went on from there?
So basically, obviously, ended up going. I actually got into a little bit of trouble at college for this because I went away on this tournament and played, and I was meant to start a separate course. And I told the college that I've been, you know, and obviously the coach of the water polo team had informed the college, look, he's been selected for the men's team, he's going away to represent Great Britain. So I went and did it thinking, no, there's no issue here. And then went and played the tournament, had an amazing time, you know, got to do some amazing sightseeing in Egypt. You know, went to the pyramids, the museum, did a cruise on the Nile. It was a phenomenal first experience of going away with the men's team. I really, really enjoyed it. And then I came back to college and went, you know, obviously I had my schedule and went into my class, and this teacher was like, who are you? And I was like, oh yeah, Mike, I'm sorry, I was away last week. You've missed the start of the term, which was like, I think it was like 1 or 2 classes. Yeah. He's like, no, you're out. Wouldn't let me do that part of the course. So obviously I wasn't bothered because it was a course I just didn't want to do anyway. So that was fine. But then I think that just allowed me then just to focus on the actual course that I was mainly there to do, train even more, and then I started travelling back and forth between college and Manchester to train with the national team like once or twice a week because I'd passed my driving test, got my car, and it was like a 2.5 hour drive up to Manchester. Used to drive up and train like once or twice a week, and then once I finished college, then I then moved to Manchester full time, and I moved to Manchester full time to solely play water polo for Great Britain. That was my my goal at that point. Then we'd already got the Olympic bid for 2012, so the Olympics was a very high chance that we would go. because we got automatic qualification, but just because you get automatic qualification doesn't mean that they will send you. So
basically you're in Manchester full-time, training hard daily for the Olympics.
That's it.
In 2012.
This was like 2007, 2008, I think it was. And then the Beijing Olympics 2008 happened, and because we were still building our squad, we didn't even get to go to the qualification tournament to even try and qualify. Now we wouldn't have qualified anyway. We weren't good enough at that point. And but it was like a catch-22 for us, because we weren't allowed to go to the Olympic qualifiers to even try and qualify, but because we didn't then go and didn't qualify, we then had our funding cut because we didn't get a medal in Beijing. So I think we had something like 4.5 million from the UK sport that went between us and the women's team, and then it got cut to like $1 million or something like that between the two teams, and it was a massive cut. So that's when like the basically, you know, Team GB turned around and said to us, if you can outsource and go and play elsewhere and gain experience where we don't have to basically host you here in Manchester, then it's going to save us a lot of money, and you guys will still get experience and still train and be professional. Now, I'd not long come back from Australia as like a holiday to see my family, and I'd been training with a team in Australia, and one of the guys that was there had said, "Oh, you should come out and play a season." So I literally, as soon as the national team said to us, "Look, if you can go and find somewhere else to play," I was literally like on the phone, on my emails the same day, like not even thinking about time zones or anything like that. And I was like, "I've got a chance to come over to Australia if you guys will have me. Can it work?" And he basically emailed me back literally the next day and said, "Leave it with me. Let me see what we can do." And then I think that was probably like June 2009 or something like that. And then as soon as he got back to me, I applied for a visa to Australia. And then I think it was like August, September time, I moved over to Australia, and got myself playing in their local league in Perth to start with. And I had the intention I thought I was going over there to play for a team called, at the time they were called Perth Torpedoes, so UWA Torpedoes. And I played in like this local league, and our team that I played for ended up getting to the grand final in the local league. And I also then got asked to go and train at the Western Australian Institute of Sport, where most of the Fremantle Mariners team, and our Fremantle Mariners are the most successful water polo team in Aussie history. They've won X amount of national championships. And I went to this first session at Wace. And by the end of the session, the coach of Fremantle had come down to the pool and was like, "Oh, who are you playing for in National League?" And I said, "Oh, I'm under the impression that I'm going to trial for Torpedoes." And he's like, "No, you're going to come play for us." So I ended up playing for Fremantle, which was like the best thing that could have happened to me, because the pool was at the bottom of my uncle's road, and I was living with my uncle. So literally I could walk to training if I wanted to. Nice. It was brilliant. And I played there for the season. We actually won the league. And then basically from when you win the league, the top 6 teams then go through to the grand finals to then play for like another, like the Grand Cup, as it were. And we ended up losing in the semi-final of that, like a last-minute goal. But like I say, it was a great experience. And then while I was there in Australia, the national team obviously contacted us and said, "Look, you know, if you want to continue playing for the national team, you have to come and play for a team in Europe. It's Australia's too far away. It's too much money to get flights and this and this." So I was like, okay. And then I ended up signing to play for PSV Eindhoven in Holland.
So why didn't you go back home then?
Go back to the UK?
Yeah.
I know we were.
You went to PSV first, and then you went home?
No. So I finished the season in ours, and then we go back, and usually over the summer. The summer is the off season for water polo usually. And you would then train with the national team and play tournaments here, there, and everywhere.
And then you went back out.
Then I went back out at the start of the season to play for PSV. Had the season in Holland, and it was the complete opposite of Australia in terms of being top of the league. And then I was, by the end of the season, we was actually in a relegation battle. So, and we managed to stay up, which was, again, it was an amazing feeling to, it was like a 5-game or 3-game series, to decide whether you got relegated. And we ended up winning the series 2-1 or 3-2. I can't remember how many games it was. But we ended up winning the last game at the rivals' home port, which again was a great feeling. So we managed to stay out of relegation. It was again, as growing as a water polo player, it was a great experience to go through that and not just be playing for the best team.
At the top all the time, yeah.
So after Holland, obviously went back to the UK again for the summer. Again, same thing, like playing for the national team in like tournaments around Europe, and you go on tours here, there, and everywhere. And then I was originally going to play. I'd been contacted by a team in Croatia, and I was desperate to go and play for this team in Croatia because I'd played against them in the pre-season with PSV, and they'd noticed me and thought I was playing well, and they'd basically sort of offered me a verbal contract for the next season. And then I was in talks with them, and they in the end lost their main sponsor. So the money that the sponsor would give them would obviously then pay for their imports. I would have been one of their imports. So then I was at one point, I had no team. And I was like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go and play? And I wanted to play in another league. I wanted to get more experience of a different league, a different style of play. And then I was approached by a team in Valencia called Turia, and I signed with them. They were in the top division in the Spanish league, and the Spanish league was probably one of the top 3 or top 4 leagues in the world at that point. Still is, it's still a very good league. And they'd just recently been promoted into the league, and I went and played for them. And that was probably my most professional season I've ever had in terms of the timing of trainings and stuff like that. It was, I was getting paid to play. I was living in a beautiful city. I was training like 6-7 hours a day, but at decent hours. A lot of the time when you're training for water polo and swimming, you get like the shit end of the stick, as it were. You train early hours and late night because the public always gets the best hours at the pool and stuff. So I went from training at like 5:30 a.m. In the morning to my first session being in the gym at 10 a.m. And then we'd doing like an hour and a half in the gym, and then 2 hours in the pool, go back and eat. Then I'd usually go for like a cycle, actually down like the Valencia Grand Prix course to the beach, and I'd sit and have a coffee, and I'd just chill at the beach for an hour.
Sounds like a nice life, this water polo professional player.
Yeah, I'd cycle back, I'd eat again, maybe watch something on my laptop or on the TV. I'd then go back to the pool. I'd do like an hour of land work, and then like another 2 hours in the pool, and be finished by sort of like 8, half 8. And that was literally my life. I did Monday through to Friday, but that was my life. And then whichever day that we didn't have a game on at the weekend was my rest day. And usually it was like most of the time it was a Sunday, and I'd go and watch the football in a local pub.
Not drinking at all. So in these years from like 2008, when obviously you didn't get the bid for.
We didn't go to Beijing. We didn't
go to Beijing.
Yeah.
And then, so from 2008 to 2012, I think was the next sort of big thing for you. 2012.
Yeah.
Just talk to us about 2012. What happened there? You was expecting something to happen, but it didn't. Yeah. So tell us all about that.
I think it was around January time.
Big event.
Yeah. January time 2012. I was playing in Spain, and I ended up fracturing my orbital bone in my eye socket. So I basically got hit on the face, and I didn't get like hit like a punch. It was sort of like a palm.
Even worse.
Yeah, it was like a palm, and it hit me perfectly on the eyeball. And basically the pressure of my eyeball getting pushed back like snapped all the cavity in the back of my eye socket. And there's nothing I could do about it. Like, it was honestly one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. It was horrible. I could barely see out of it. I had to go to hospital in Spain. Obviously, my Spanish was good at the time, and especially in terms of like water polo, plays and tactics. But when I was in the hospital and I could hear them talking in Spanish, and I had no idea what they were saying, I was shitting myself. Because I was like, I've lost my vision. I'm not going to be able to see. And they're basically like, they were lucky. They said like, a millimetre here or there, you could have like detached your retina, and you'd have been done. Yeah. So I had to travel back to the UK at that point. I missed about 4 or 5 games of the season in Spain to see our national team doctor in the UK. I got myself back out to Spain as quick as possible just to be around the team and be around the training environment, and had to basically build myself back up again, because I wasn't allowed to train that hard because of the nature of the injury. The harder I trained, the more my blood pressure would pump, And if it went too much, it could end up popping the back of it again. So I had to like build my fitness back up again, but very gradually over the course of like a month. Like I said, I missed about 4 or 5 games, but then I just went for it in the end. I built it back up, and then I was like, right, I'm going for it now. I'm doing everything I can to get my fitness back up, because we had the Olympics coming up in the summer. And that was London. It was a home Olympics, and it always had been my dream to be an Olympian growing up. Like watching all the Olympics. And
have the tattoo.
Yeah, have the tattoo. Tattoo it's the only tattoo I've ever wanted. I've not really been bothered by tattoos, but if I was to ever get a tattoo, that would have been one of, some kind of Olympic, logo and representation of the fact that it was a home Olympics in London. So yeah, I trained my ass off, finished the season off really well with the team I was playing with. We didn't do great in the league, but I had a good season, like individually in terms of like my goal scoring haul and stuff like that. So I'd done well for the team that I was playing in, because we weren't the best team in the league, and we had a lot to overcome when we were playing teams. And yeah, so I came back from Spain really like stupidly confident with the way I was playing. I was enjoying the game. Like I said, I felt like a true professional. Yeah. And then we had like a few tournaments and stuff, and we had like swim tests like 2 weeks before what was the eventual selection of the team.
Yeah, so a swim test for the Olympics. Basically.
No, it's like a swim test for the team. Yeah. So everyone in the team had to do a 50, 100 and a 200. And it was basically to see where everyone's fitness was at, where everyone's speed was at. And like I said, I think my 50 time was one of the top times. I did like a 23.9. My 100 metre time was like one of the top 3 or top 4. My 200 metre time was one of the top 4, top 5 like times in the whole squad. And that's a squad of like 20 plus people. And yeah, so they turn around to us and tell us, right, you guys have trained really hard. You guys can have 2-3 days off, go home and see your family. And yeah, so I was driving down from Manchester to Birmingham to go and spend time with my family. I'm stuck in traffic on the M6 motorway, on the worst things going. And my phone pings and I get an email. And
so hang on, they just sent you an email with a list of names. This is the team.
Yeah. They sent an email saying, this is the coach's decision. These are the 13 players that have been picked, and these are the 3 players that are in the reserve position.
All right. And what everybody wants to know is, was your name on that list?
My name was not on the list. My name was on the reserve list.
Hence why Mike has not got an Olympics tattoo.
Yeah. And that was, honestly, it was like a heart-sinking feeling. Yeah. I like chucked my phone across the car. I was
the M6.
Yeah, literally. If the window was open, it would have been gone. And yeah, I was devastated. I was absolutely gutted, because obviously at that point then they'd just sent a list. They hadn't said why. Mm-hmm. And I had a couple of days then of like just not knowing why. And I don't know. I get home and I walked in the house, and I always get emotional saying this, but I walked in the house and my dad looked at me and he just went, "You've not been picked, have you?" And I was like, "No." And obviously just broke down. Mm-hmm. And like I say, I get emotional now, because it still brings back feelings of everything that you put into it. Yeah. And I felt like you feel like a failure, but you also...
Do you feel cheated? You feel like, you should have been part of that team, like the coach, whoever was involved?
Yeah, I did. But I'm also one of those things where when those kind of decisions are made, you can only do everything that you can do, physically and the way you're playing to get picked. You can only play as well as you can and hope that people see what you're capable of and see what you bring to the team. And like I said, from that moment I got my first call up at 18, I'd pretty much been in the men's team all the way through till I was 24. And yeah, I more so for me, I just felt like I'd let my family down.
Yeah, there's nothing worse, is there?
Because like my mum and dad they'd supported me through everything. Like I say, they'd paid money for me to go to this college, and it was like huge sacrifice, to pay that much money for me to go there. And when you fall at the last hurdle, it's really difficult to take when you know that you've done enough, when you know that you've trained your ass off, when you know that you are good enough to be in the team, and then you don't get picked. And it's not just me that said it. Like, obviously, there's always going to be people that say, "Oh, I don't think you should have been picked." there's always going to be, but there was also plenty of people that were also devastated for
Expecting
me.
your name on that list,
yeah,
basically.
and there's people on the list that were messaging me that same day going,
I should be there.
mate, I'm so gutted that your name's not there, you know, because they'd been picked. And they were still contacting me in their moment of joy. They were still contacting me saying, mate, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't believe that your name's not there. Like, I'd had experience of playing in like 4 different leagues. And like I say, I was one of the more experienced players in the team at that time because of the leagues that I played in, because of how long I'd been in the men's team.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really difficult to take. And because I was a reserve, I still had to go to the Olympic holding camp. I had to go to our pre-Olympic tournament.
Oh, so you saw everything.
Everything that was great, I didn't get. So like when you get picked for the Olympics, there's like a day where each sport gets to go and they get given all their Olympic kit and stuff. Yeah. And that, when you get your kit, and you know, when you're given your kits, regardless if it's for Olympics or if it's for Euro Champs or whatever you get, whenever you get your kit, it's a great feeling. And you know, I didn't get to do any of that. So they all went down for the day, and obviously with it being a home Olympics, it was made to be even better than usual. And I didn't get to be a part of that, but then had to go to our holding camp was in Dublin. So we went to Dublin. We played against Croatia, Hungary. Who else was there? There's Romania, I think, might have been there, and. Yeah, I had a really good tournament. I played really well there because I still felt like there was still a possibility of me getting picked.
Okay.
At that point, if someone got injured, I could have been the one that got replaced, that replaced them. So I still did everything that I could to get picked. Played really well, and the worst thing was I remember like the Irish team. I think it was like the coach of the Irish team or the manager of the Irish team or something came up to me after one game and was like, "Mate, you're looking better than I've ever seen you play before. Like you look loose, you look relaxed, but you're playing really strong." He goes, "I can't wait to see you playing in London." And I was like,
"I'm not playing."
"Thanks, mate, but I'm not going."
That's a good mentality to have because some people might have just been like, "Right, fuck this. They didn't pick me. Why should I be a reserve? Like, why?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, people can easily go the other way, be angry about it, and just be like, "Fuck you."
I think for me, like I'd already spent that much time in the team. I had to hang on to every chance that I still had.
A little bit of hope.
Yeah, a bit of hope, but also as well, it's a team, and I'm still part of that team. I'm still helping the preparation, and regardless whether I've been picked or not, I still want that team to do as best as possible at whatever tournament they go to. And I said that, like, anyone that got picked in the team, whether I thought they should have been picked or not, it's not their fault that they got picked. The coach makes the decision. Yeah. So they haven't got picked to spite me, you know. So I have no reason to be bitter to my teammates because they've been working the same way that I was to try and get picked, and they were the lucky ones that did get picked. And, you know, I can't begrudge them for that because, like I said, the decision is taken out of their hands, same as it was taken out of mine. Yeah. Because, you know, the coach is the one that makes the decision. And like I say, I could have been called into the team pretty much all the way up until the first whistle went on the game. And I remember watching because this is the thing for me. If you talk to me about the UK now, like you won't catch me even remotely thinking about moving back to the UK. I don't want to move back to the UK. There's nothing. Like, my family's there, but my family are happy. In terms of career-wise, there's nothing for me there. I don't want to live there. It's just not a place for me. But if you talk to me about how patriotic I am about representing my country and playing for them, it's a complete opposite end of the spectrum. And I watched that Olympics, and I remember watching the opening ceremony. And I was like, "Oh, there's so-and-so, and I'm watching on the screen. I could see my mates, see my teammates. And I was excited, but, you know, it was sort of obviously still upset. And then I can hear this noise. Oh, what's that noise? And I turn around, and my mum is just sobbing. Yeah. Like, she was like an absolute mess. Like, she barely speak words because she was like, "You should be there." Yeah, yeah. You know, and,
it's cute.
You know, obviously, that made me feel bad. I was like,
next you cry then, right?
My parents are upset.
It wasn't all doom and gloom, though, because obviously you didn't make the 2012 Olympic team, but in 2014, let's tell people what happened in 2014.
Yeah, so
was it all bad? Was it?
No. So for me, moving on from 2012, I was very much in a mindset of I still love this sport and I still want to play. But now I did actually get offered a contract to go back and play in Spain, at a different team. And I ended up not taking it because I thought, because I've missed out on the Olympics, and that was, to me, was the pinnacle of what I wanted to achieve. I was like, maybe now I should start looking at what everyone else would call a real job, or at least a career-based job, because I was never going to be a career-based water polo player. So I ended up moving to Manchester and then working full-time as a PT. And I'd already been coaching since before I was like 18 anyway, coaching swimming and coaching amputees and kids from rough areas and that in different schools as of water polo. And we'd done some strength and conditioning work with the junior Manchester team that went on to win like national titles. So I'd already had a lot of experience in coaching anyway from my late teens. And then obviously water polo just took over, and then I was like, right, okay, I'm gonna go and work full time as a PT. So I went and worked full time as a PT in Manchester, stayed playing for Manchester in the National League, and we ended up winning the league that year. And then the head coach of the national team basically got replaced by he was Romanian, by another Romanian guy that I actually used to play against multiple. So I played against him countless times with the national team against Romania, but I also played against him in Spain because he played for another team. And I obviously ended up having a conversation with him, and he was just saying, "Look, where were you? Why weren't you? Why were you not there in London? Like, you've been in the men's team for every game that I've played against you." He goes, "Was it because of your eye? Because you knew about my eye?" And I said, "No." And he sort of, because basically the reason that when I actually got the reason and sat down face to face with the coach, and he gave me the reason why he didn't pick me for 2012 was, he said, "Oh, you're a small player," which technically height wise I am. And he's like, "Yeah, you because you're small, you need to be quick, and you're not quick enough." And I was like, I literally had the fastest time and top 4 fastest times out of everyone in the squad. Like, if I'm not fast enough, then there's obviously multiple other people that aren't faster. So I couldn't take that as a valid excuse. And obviously I told this to the new coach, and he sort of like smirked and laughed and was like, "Okay, that's ridiculous. I know how fast you are. I know what you're capable of, and the position that you play requires you to be fast, so you wouldn't be able to play there if you weren't fast." And so anyway, he said, "Look, I'm the coach now. Will you come back and play for Great Britain again?" And I just sort of said, "What for? What are we aiming for?" And he said, "Well, we've got the European qualifiers and that coming up, and then we've got the Commonwealth Games in 2014. And I was like, "Look, I've just started a new job. I don't think I can commit to coming back in time for the European qualifiers, because I can't commit to that much training like right now this second, because I've just started a new job." I said, "But if you can not guarantee me my spot, but guarantee me if I get my fitness back to where it was and play well, and if you can pretty much guarantee me getting picked, then I'll definitely come back and try and get picked for the Commonwealths." And he was like, "Look, if you play the way that I know you can play, then you've got a 99% chance of pretty much getting picked." So I came back, had a good season with Manchester, carried on training. Obviously, then started doing the national team sort of training weekends and stuff, and ended up getting picked for the Commonwealths.
No disappointment this time.
So it's a bit sweet. Because in my head, after 2012, I was like, "I'm retiring. I'm not playing international anymore." And then I got picked, and then we ended up winning gold. So I walked away with a Commonwealth gold medal, and I was like, "Right, okay, now I can hang up my Speedos," as it were. And
it was your anniversary not long ago, right? I remember you posting it on Instagram again.
Yeah.
Every year Mike posts his same post every year about his Commonwealth Games experience.
You got to hang on to those wins, that's for sure.
But no, like you said, mate, fair play. You've trained a hell of a lot of years to represent your country, and after missing out on the Olympics and then coming back and actually getting there with the Commonwealth Games was, it's fair play to you, mate, and well done. But what was it like to finally get there, and what was it like experiencing that Commonwealth Games, and what was it like to actually represent your country at such a high level? Was it all that you imagined it to be?
I think I treated every game that I ever played for GB was always, it was just it was an honour. Like, it was a privilege to play and represent. And like I say, to this day, the greatest feeling that you can ever have as an athlete, in my opinion, is, standing and singing your national anthem, and before the game, and basically that adrenaline, the nerves you get before playing and just before you sort of start, it's a great feeling. And like I think it's just one of the things where the anthem just makes a big difference. Like I had this.
Do you cry at the national anthem as well?
Pardon?
Do you cry at the national anthem as well?
I don't cry. I well up a little bit though. It does get me. Like I'm very proud when I sing it.
Yeah.
And I had to learn a new anthem for England because at that point in the Commonwealth, they actually changed the England national anthem to Jerusalem. A song called Jerusalem, not
Jerusalem.
not I think it was Land of Hope and Glory. I think was the other one, and obviously then the normal British anthem. But so learn the words of that because I'm like if I'm going to sing it, if I'm going to stand in the national anthem, I'm going to sing it. And my dad's stupidly patriotic, and he will sing the national anthem, and he gets teary when he sees people do well. And like I said, when we were singing our national anthem, when we got our gold medal around our neck, and I look up into the crowd and I can see my dad like welling up and being and tears and stuff. That for me was like it didn't make everything right, but it just made me feel so much better. Like I felt like I'd sort of fulfilled everything that they'd sacrificed for me to get there. So it was a nice end to it, and the whole atmosphere of any tournament that you go to it's as professional as you make it. And I always took it as when I'm playing, like I was always had my earpods in before games, and I'd have my music on, and I'd have a good land warm up, and that was what would psych me up. Some people didn't do it, some people did, and that was just what I needed. I was, like I say, I'm a visual learner, but I also love visualization, where you visualize yourself playing well and you visualize yourself doing well. Yeah. And that's what I used to do when I was warming up. I used to visualize myself making that pass. I used to visualize myself scoring the goal, making the tackle, and I think that just got me into the right frame of mind.
Was Great Britain one of the favourites to win that?
The Commonwealth?
Yeah.
So we were one of the favourites to go in.
So how, as an athlete, how did you handle that sort of pressure? Because obviously there's a lot of people watching. It's a big event. How do you handle the sort of pressure that yourself and Great Britain are under?
So whenever I played for the national team, I always wanted it to be a big crowd. And not because I wanted to show off or do things that would, but when you have a big crowd and you have the atmosphere, because especially when you're in a swimming pool, the swimming pool 9 times out of 10 is enclosed, and it's a far smaller venue arena than a football stadium. So you don't have to have many people in there. If they create a good atmosphere and if they're making noise, it echoes inside. And the bigger crowd you have, the more adrenaline you get from that noise, the more adrenaline. Like, I still remember there's 2 occasions that I remember in my international career that I remember the crowd making all the difference. One of them was we were playing in a World League game against Italy. In Italy, in a place called Cremona. Now the pool, they'd built like a standing, like a seated spectating area inside the pool, like an actual stand, and there was like 2,000 people in there. Nice. And I remember singing our national anthem. I think we had like 4 people travel with us, like as in someone's parents came and watched because it was in Italy. Yeah. It was like a one game. Like if we travelled to one game, we'd go there for a couple of days and do a couple of training sessions and then play the game and then leave. And so literally you could say there was like 4 British supporters there, and then there was 1,996 Italian fans. We sing our national anthem, I sing it proud and I sing it loud, and then the Italian national anthem comes on. And the Italian national anthem is pretty cool. It's a pretty good anthem anyway, but the whole crowd starts singing it, and it echoes in the arena. And it honestly, I've never had the experience where, like, my hair standing on when I sing my national anthem, but my hairs were going crazy for them singing, because the atmosphere that it created was just phenomenal. Yeah. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, and I just remember that psyched me up for that game. And it was weird that it was someone else's anthem that psyched me up, because it was just the atmosphere they created. And then the other time was I was playing in the European qualifiers in Croatia. And in our group, we had Croatia and Montenegro, who are huge rivals, because obviously they used to be part of Yugoslavia. and obviously they hate each other now because they've all split. They're split countries, and we'd already played those two teams, and we was at the other team in the group was Slovenia, and they were favourites to beat us, and we ended up drawing with them 11-all. But it was like halfway through the games, all the Croatian fans and all the Montenegrin fans, you know, it was like again, same thing, like a 2,000, 3,000 capacity like stadium inside the pool. Yeah, Croatians one side, Montenegrins the other side, and they're going crazy. But then they're watching the game and they're realising that we're actually playing quite well. And I remember counter-attacking at the pool, turning onto our back, receiving the ball off the goalkeeper, looking across to my mate who's free, but then there's a defender in between us. So I faked to pass it to the defender. The defender jumps to my mate to go to him, which left me free to take the shot and goal. And I remember shooting, bounce shot, bottom bar down and in. But as I shot, I got absolutely clobbered by a player chasing me behind, like just, you know, straight over the top, you know, knee in the back, just because I'd scored a goal. Obviously, he was just trying to injure me under the water. And I came out up above the water, and the noise the crowd was making for us scoring was absolutely amazing. And I was just like, I was going mental. I just remember those two times where it was like the other crowds that, you know, really created the atmosphere. I think that's the same with any comp you make. Like if you're just, you know, if you just want to do your best and play to the best of your ability, you've got to suck in all those, you know, all the environment around and utilise that to play as well as you can.
So, what advice would you give someone who is probably interested in pursuing a career in either water polo or any other competitive sport? Like, obviously, you've been in and around this international circuit, whether it's water polo or not. What advice would you give someone who's, you know, growing up, finding a sport and actually pretty good at it?
I think you definitely need to find a sport that you love. You don't want the training to seem like a chore. You don't want to hate the training. You need to love it. You need to be passionate about it. You need to want to do well. And it doesn't matter what sport it is, but you also need to put in the hours. You've got to be willing to commit. You've got to be willing to sacrifice weekends where you can't go out with your mates, you know. But, you know, if you put everything into it and you do reap the rewards, you really can benefit. And like so many people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky. You've been here, you've been there." And I'm like, yeah, I am lucky to see these countries, but I had to work so hard to get picked to then go to these countries. And like I said, I think that's sort of like the cliche of never give up and stuff like that. But that is
so
the
especially
core,
when you're younger, right?
Yeah, that is the core thing. It's so easy to get sidetracked when you're younger. It's so easy to go down the wrong path. And that's what I said. I sort of went down it when I was younger than most people, and I think that was the best thing that happened to me, because it taught me a lesson of, right, I need to respect others, I need to focus on this, I need to be a good person, I need to do, you know, everything I can to get to where I want to be. Yeah. And I had good people around me, good support, family have always supported me, good friends.
I think that's important, to have good people around you, whether it's your coaches, whether it's, like you said, your friends, your family. Yeah. You know, people that want the best for you. It's definitely good having that circle.
Yeah, I think I was lucky in that sense, where the friends that I did have around me that weren't in the national team, they just understood. Yeah. They just knew. They, you know, be like, "Oh mate, it's so and so's birthday this weekend. We're going down to we're going down here. Do you want to come and have a drink with us?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry guys, I can't. I'm away this weekend. In this country, I'm playing here." And then straight away they were like, "Oh no, fair play. That's great, that is." And they just never begrudged me for it. They never sort of would be like, "Oh, you're boring. You are. You never come out," because they knew that was my life. They knew that was my job essentially. So I think that's when you get people that sort of recognise what you are doing and why you're doing it, then that massively helps, and they don't try and take you down the wrong path. Yeah. So again, it sort of just depends on who you surround yourself with. But in terms of any sport that you play, you just have to give everything to it. Same with, like, I know that I'm never going to be an individual competitor for CrossFit, but I still train most days because I've just got that mentality of I want to be stronger and I want to be fitter. And now that I'm getting older, I want to see how fit and how strong I can be the older that I get. Yeah. And that's why I train. I train to feel good. Yeah. I train to enjoy myself. I train to be around good people. And, you know, I love competing on a team. I think that's why I enjoy the team stuff. Yeah. Because I've just grown up
Around team sports.
And I love being part of that team. I love supporting my friends. I love supporting my teammates. And I think sometimes when you, like, I had a lot of success as a swimmer individually. Like, I won plenty of things when I was young, growing up, plenty of races and stuff. But I just think that when you win with a team, you win together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a better feeling to be able to celebrate with your teammates than just be, okay, I've won.
I guess individuals are just, the individual sports just can get a little bit lonely, right? Whether it's training and competing, it can get a little bit lonely. So, like, looking back on your water polo career, that's what it is there anything that you would have done differently, or any lessons that you learned that you wish you'd have known earlier? Looking back,
there's definitely some lessons I've learned. I was very aggressive when I was younger, so I was very hot-headed, and I would open my mouth at the first instant. You know, if I thought something was wrong, if I thought a decision was the wrong way, you know, if I thought someone had been, you know, cheated, as it were, or someone had done the wrong thing, and the ref had made the wrong decision, I was like, I just couldn't take it. And that's for my mum, for sure. My mum can see.
She'll be listening, you know.
Yeah, I know. But she knows that she knows growing up that my mum was she would lose her temper at me, whereas my dad is the calm person, which obviously they're complementing each other. That's why they work so well and why they've been married 40 odd years. So, I think as I've got older and as I've started to relax more and just take things for what they are, and that's where I've started to take more of an approach that my dad would take playing. Like, I remember watching my dad playing football growing up, and he was the most level-headed person going. That's why he's a referee now, because he's so neutral, he's just so relaxed. Yep. And he was a defender, he used to control the game from the back, never lose his temper, nothing. Whereas I had the hot-head side from my mum.
But it seemed like you learned as you went on, because for you missing out on the Olympics, I think you actually took that pretty well. You was pretty calm, like you took your dad's side, you know. So I think as you went on, you sort of learned more from your dad's side than your mum's.
I think sometimes when decisions are made, 9 times out of 10, when decisions are made, they're final. So sometimes it's not worth.
Only control the controllable.
It's not worth trying to fight and trying to argue when the decision is. And that's one thing I massively needed to learn when I was younger playing water polo. I'd always lose my shit if the referee made the wrong decision. But the thing is, the referee's already blown his whistle. So the referee's it's not going to happen. And it wasn't until later on in my career that I started to realise, okay, look, you can't change it. So, and that's why I think now, like, getting into CrossFit and, you know, doing events and stuff that personally or individually, you know, you're not good at, or you know you're not strong enough to lift that, or you know that the capacity that is in a workout, I don't let it affect me, because I'm like, well, I can just do what I can do. I've been training for this and this, and I will just try and implement that as well as possible. Good
mentality to have. And for people that are actually wanting to learn how to swim or become a better swimmer, come to your swimming classes, like, how can they get hold of you? Like, what's the crack? When are your swimming lessons?
So the swim club at the moment is Tuesday morning 7 a.m, Thursday afternoon at 4:30 p.m, and then at the moment it's Saturday morning at 8 a.m. at the beach. We've got an outdoor.
We'll put a schedule up around here.
and then obviously if you wanted to do more one-to-one swimming, the thing is, it's much harder to learn to swim as an adult. You know, that's why I always say,
get your kids in
the pool, because the more that they learn when they're younger, the easier it'll be for them as they go through life, because they'll learn to adapt as they grow up and swim as their body changes and develops. Whereas when you're an adult and you've got to learn to swim, you're more dense, you're heavier, you have a lot. It's
just harder work for you as a coach.
You have a lot more limb length to control. And you also understand the capability that water has. You know that if you swallow water, you can cough and choke. Whereas when you're a kid, you're just like, straight in the water and, you know, diving in. And, you know, most kids are not scared of the water, or they like to be around it. And that's why I think it's important that you get kids in the water so that they aren't afraid. So one-to-one swimming, you can contact me via my Instagram. Or obviously through the gym itself. There's plenty of ways to contact me on there. And yeah, just I focus. It doesn't matter to me who I work with. I love working with athletes because I've been an athlete and I know what mentality that they're going through to try and be the best. But I also love teaching people how to swim from the beginning, because if someone doesn't know how to swim or someone is scared of the water, it's an amazing feeling when you get them past that scared stage and actually get them moving through the water. And then I still work with kids every now and then as well. So it doesn't matter your age. It's never too late to learn to swim. And the main things I focus on is just, being efficient and making swimming as easy and as relaxing as possible.
Amazing. And I think with regards to swimming, like you said, I think anyone can learn or need to know how to swim. It's very important that people who are listening and watching, if you can't swim, please get hold of Mike.
That's it. Well, but it's also a great thing when someone's injured and they can't do much in the gym.
Especially high impact stuff, right?
Yeah,
like you said it earlier.
Come to the swimming club. Come to the swimming pool.
Come and give it a go.
It's less weight bearing. It's less impact. It's a whole body movement. The water, if you allow it to, the water can help support you. Yeah. So it's a lot easier on the body and obviously helps you keep and maintain that fitness, while you are injured. Yeah. And that's what I attribute my, in quotations, my CrossFit success or my CrossFit ability is the baseline fitness that I came into CrossFit with because of all the swimming that I'd done. That's where my advantage was. I was just massively behind in the strength side with the lifting and stuff. But swimming is a fantastic way of
when I used to go swimming, whether it was for fun or whether it was me just doing some lengths or whatever, I used to always see old people just up and down, up and down, up and down, and they'd swim for hours. Yeah. Getting the fitness in, like, at an old age. Again, it's low impact stuff, so, yeah, very important. Well, Mike, I think you are the first sort of professional athlete I've had on my podcast.
Pleasure.
So, what a way to finish up this episode. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for having me.
And it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Mike.
Cheers, mate.
Swim coach. A big thank you to our main podcast sponsor, Practical, for supplying guests with some tasty snacks, and you guys for watching on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe and let us know what you think by dropping a message in the comment section below.